The answer is £1.5 billion.
Welcome back to Friday's show with Alexis Conran, Rebecca Wheatley and CBB champ Jim Davidson.
Are we back?
Jim's going to be, I can understand, he must be cock-hoped to be out of the house. He's going to be guiding us through the rest of the headlines shortly, including Army sent to help Somerset flood victims, then told not to, and the supermarket in trouble for geek chic clothing. But first, I'm trying to find out if any of you are as troubled as me by today's revelation that the government's rarely used emergency powers to stop us seeing a report into the HS2 high-speed rail line that no one, aside from the condemned, seems to want. 0207 173 5555, the number. It's claimed ministers used the same powers last employed to keep Tony Blair's Iraq war papers secret to suppress this warts and all report. Why? Well, to protect civil servants and their supposedly impartial advice. But I'll say again, with £50 billion of our money, your money on the table, don't we have a right to see what's in it? After all, the Mirror claimed back in December there are major concerns about this project. They will shave just 32 minutes off the time it takes to get from London to Birmingham. Before the break, Alexis said for 50 billion quid we should be getting a lot more for our money. Our rail network needs improving, but we may be being misled on HS2. It's difficult to tell, we can't see the report. Rebecca wondered why we're not allowed to know what this report says. HS2 is too expensive, few people want it, she says. And Jim felt that if we knew all the facts, we would reject the idea of HS2. The money should be spent on a proper rail network. But of course we can't see all the facts if the government represses the report. Right, Kirsty, who's on the phone?
We have Paul on line 1.
Morning, Paul.
Morning, Matthew. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Frustrated that David Cameron, who says we're going to have an era of transparency, seems to be doing the complete opposite with 50 billion quid of our money at stake.
Well, as a retired train driver, I worked on the railway for over 30 years. Well, 35 to be precise. It's a non-political view. But if you go back to when they privatised the railways, it's the Channel Tunnel thing all over again. With the routes and the compulsory purchase orders and property, and they had 2 routes going in that direction.
That's right.
So when the route that wasn't selected, what happened to all the land and property that was purchased there? Who got it back? And then when the railway companies were split up, you found out that most of the directors of these companies, including Railtrack in itself, were all ex-Conservative transport ministers. Now, if you're talking about 50-odd billion to build this HS2, you would find out that most of the companies that will be supplying the equipment, the trains, building the trains, they're not British. You'll find out they're French, German, and whatever, just like the companies, the Dutch, the Germans, the French, that own the railway companies in Britain at this moment. The money goes out of the country, including the subsidies that us taxpayers pay to keep these railways running. Most of the profits go back to France, Germany, and Holland.
They may. What about the secrecy element? I mean, there's £50 billion of our money, and we're being told that we can't see what the experts, what the people who work on this project actually think is going to happen to it. That is a scandal, isn't it?
Well, exactly, because then you would have to know where the money is going, to what companies are going to... And the people in Britain would, they'd be up in arms to find out once again that the rail companies like that used to build the trains and crew and places like that, and the companies that supply everything that needs to build the railway, you'll find out that it's not British companies.
Well, Paul, it's difficult to know without getting a hold of the paperwork, which we can't because it's been repressed. Thank you for the call.
We have Nikki on line 4.
Morning, Nikki.
Good morning.
Good morning. Now, Kirsty just told me you're an MEP, Nikki. Which is what?
That's right. I'm a member of the European Parliament for the West Midlands. We demand a referendum, and I'm totally opposed, as most of my constituents are, against this project.
Why?
It's ripping through the green belt. It's not going to deliver what it promises. And I think we have actual proof of this. Just look at HS1. HS1 has failed to deliver. The train services in Kent, the local services have been diminished. If you want to get people to work and increase investment in the local area, you need to increase local services. One of the downtrodden towns and cities in my area is Stoke and the surrounding areas. HS2 is just going to bypass this. This is terrible for the people of the West Midlands.
And what about the secrecy, Nikki? I mean, you're in the world of politics, albeit over in Europe. I mean, David Cameron has promised us a new era of transparency, a new era. £50 billion of money, which is almost half the NHS budget for a year, and the NHS is a very expensive organisation. £50 billion, and we're being told we can't be informed about what the experts think what's going to happen to it. We just aren't being allowed to know.
Absolutely. Well, I would say that David Cameron's been a very good European. He's learning the tricks from Brussels very, very well, because there's a complete lack of transparency over in Brussels as well. I think that exactly why are they so frightened of letting the people know about this project? It is doomed to failure, and it's going to cost taxpayers money, and it's not going to achieve what they're seeking it to achieve. The
civil servants argument that if they were promised it would be secret, which I find slightly quizzical. They're promised it would be secret, and that if it was released to the public, it might jeopardise future reports because people won't be so open. Do you buy that argument, Nikki?
Absolutely not. I mean, I translate that as being we haven't got an argument, so therefore we won't give you the facts.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And what I find quite surprising is I would have thought, as you represent the West Mids, that with so much we read earlier this week in the papers, there was a brain drain, loads of people leave the provinces to come down to London, and I would have thought that, you'd be sitting there thinking, the West Mids, this is an opportunity to bring economic wealth, prosperity, maybe, as Jim was saying. The West Mids could be the new commuter belt to London, and everyone would benefit in your region.
Well, I said most of it actually bypasses the areas of the West Midlands that actually really needs it, like Stoke, for example. Right. But actually, what this actually will do is actually, create a greater London. It will actually lose the identity of Birmingham and the West Midlands, and that's what I fear. But also, we've got fantastic greenbelt land that this is just going to go through. Houses have been blighted, and the people simply, the majority, do not want it. Okay. And I thought we lived in a democracy where we should listen
in a what, Nikki?
To what the majority thinks.
Don't worry about it. Thank you very much for the call. It's great to hear some passion from an MEP as well. Thank you, Nikki.
Yeah, it makes a change.
It does make a change.
We have Joe on line 2.
Morning, Joe.
Good morning.
Are you a fan of HS2, sir? Are you a believer?
No, I certainly don't. I look on a bigger picture, not only on HS2, but to me there seems to be a culture of a government of vested interest. Because basically I'm seeing a culture, to me, of a culture which is turning public spending, which should be based on public need, but being turned into a profit-making exercise. Because the only people who will really benefit from HS2 Liberty. And I'm seeing much public monies being extended into corporations which are claimed to being given public service. I could name 3 on the top of my head.
So could I. Could I. Anyway, can we talk about secrecy for a moment, Joe? I mean, what...
Secrecy is the means of hiding motive.
OK. See, do you suspect that if there was good news in this report, it would be published?
There would be no fear of hiding it. Because if it is in the public interest, then the public would support it. But I believe we will clearly see monies being extended everywhere in public spending.
OK, Joe, I've got to drop in because I rather like railways. I've got to hit our timetables.